can I help?
Okay, so I'm not entirely for sure. Right now, I seem to find myself in a situation similar to what I believe you were in as far as trying to do too much. The issue is more of a matter of consistency and also identifying a proper time frame for which I need to apply myself. Currently, I am on the 6-month study plan, and because of the schoolwork that I'm currently doing, I'm this close to finishing my bachelor's. I find it difficult to maintain that plan. So the time frame that I would like to apply for law schools is not able to be met under the 6-month study plan. So the first question I guess that I would have is, do I need to modify the plan for a reduced time frame, or do I need to wait till next year?
There are two approaches you could take. If you want to stick with your previous target test date, you could simply do fewer questions of a given type, or you could skip certain portions of the schedule, or I could send you a new schedule that better suits your test date. So occasionally someone will say, I was planning for August, can't do that, now need to go for September, or vice versa. I'll just swap the schedule and give them the appropriate one. So that's an approach you could take. I wouldn't totally suggest choosing a test date a few months later just because you fell behind schedule, unless you feel that's what you need to do in order to reach your fullest potential.
Right, and I understand that. In reflecting about why I chose the 6-month study plan, I believe that the reason why I chose the 6-month study plan is because I assumed that a longer study plan would be more beneficial because it could cover more topics, especially since I want to get the between 170 and 180 score. However, in reviewing the LSAT diaries, which I'm not sure if you still go by that or if that was from your old website, because I've been following you for quite some time. A lot of the stories that I see, they go with the 3-month study plan and they're fine. So there is some doubt on my part about whether or not my methodology, so to speak, in selecting the 6-month study plan was even necessary in the first place, or if I would just be fine with, say, a 3-month study plan. So I'm not entirely for sure if I chose correctly in the first place.
Yeah. There are people who do it all in 3 months. There are people who were studying for a while previously. Then they discovered my resources, but they couldn't study for another 6 months. So they just got the 3-month plan. 3 months could be enough. It really varies from person to person, depending on the amount of time you're able to put in, how easily it comes to you, and then also what your ultimate goals are. There are people who did the 3-month plan who got in the 170s, but there are also plenty who got in the 160s. And if you're really committed to giving this your all, then I do think that a 6-month timeline is relatively better if you can do it. And we're speaking right now at the very beginning of March. 6 months from now would be September. You could take it in September or October or even December and still apply in the same cycle. Totally fine.
Okay. So if I were to adopt the 3-month study plan, I do some soul searching, find out that a 3-month study plan is something I want to do because I really want to take it this year. What are some indicators that if I were to embark on that plan that I might need more time in studying? How do I gauge my progress?
Well, as you're getting closer to the test date, you want to look at where your practice test scores are at. I have what I call the law of averages because I don't want you to put too much stock in any one particular LSAT result on a practice test. So I'd say take the most recent 5 exams you've done in a reasonably recent time frame, take the average of them, and that's the best indication of where you'll stand. So if you were aiming for August or September, in the month prior, maybe you're doing a timed exam or 2 per week, average those out, see where you're at. If you're not where you want to be, postpone it.
Makes perfect sense. The next question I have is in regards to tracking missed question types, because whenever I was going through and reviewing of the questions that I have done, I had difficulty in classifying some of the questions because my line of thinking for various questions wasn't always the same. So the question that I have is, how do I see past the minutia of what was going through my mind as I answered the question to be able to more appropriately categorize it and focus my efforts for improvement?
Well, if you simply want to categorize based on question stem type, there are typically some keywords in the question stem, and you can also look at categorizations online to see how others have classified it as well. I have categorizations for most of them on my website. But aside from question stem type, there are other things to think about also. Once you have a good foundation in the exam, a lot of times you're just getting things wrong because they're difficult. And it's not about the question type anymore, like strengthen, weaken, flaw, and so on. Rather, it could be about the method of reasoning in the stimulus. It could be about the gap or the flaw in the stimulus, or it could just be about the tempting wrong answers if they were especially well written and they lured you into a trap. And so at a certain point, once you're already in the 160s, and if your results are somewhat evenly distributed across the 3 section types, then it may not even be about question type anymore. And what you may want to do is simply review everything that gives you trouble.
Right. So in identifying the problems, or rather the questions that I had missed, is it preferable in that case to not necessarily go by stimulus type, but the type of flawed reasoning or the reasoning why I chose the incorrect answer in the first place?
Yeah, so assuming you meant question stem type there, yeah, I would say at a certain point, don't go by question type anymore. But in terms of categorizing by flaw or by method of reasoning, that's not so easily done because there are a infinite, seemingly infinite at least, number of types of methods of reasoning and flaws out there. And so there is no categorization system out there that I know of. I would love it if there was, but maybe only LSAT has that information if anyone does. There's just too many to number. So I wouldn't even try to go about categorizing them. But if you notice, of course, correlation causation methods of reasoning give you trouble, or questions involving survey issues or sampling errors, I would certainly pay attention to those. But most gaps and flaws on the LSAT are simply about what did they take for granted or what did they fail to consider. And those details are really unique to the argument.
I think that should answer the most pressing questions that I have for you. Are there any that you have for me?
Well, I want to know, what's your target test date right now, and are you thinking of switching it?
Well, to be honest, I have more focus on the quality of study as opposed to a test date. The reason why, and really the only reason why a target test date had even popped into my mind as a secondary matter is because one of my friends highlighted to me that there is an opportune window. And in the cursory view that I gave that in my research, it does seem to matter. But I'm not educated in it insofar as to know what the best windows are, but I would like to get it in before I miss that window.
Okay, so I would suggest for an application timing window, you want to have taken the LSAT and applied by the end of the calendar year in that particular cycle. So as long as you've taken the LSAT by no later than the end of December and you submit your applications by then, you're pretty much in the same general cohort. There is a rolling admissions, of course, but law schools do not necessarily evaluate applications in the order in which they're received because there are also certain numerical thresholds as well. So they're not going to look at someone with an LSAT score and GPA way below their median unless they really have to, based on who else is coming along in that cycle. And so, again, we're speaking beginning of March. You could take it in September, October, November, December, and still apply the cycle and be totally fine. January is the absolute latest I would recommend, and there may be a slight disadvantage there. Then anything after that, like February or March, I would really say you're best off waiting until the following year. But you've got up to 9+ months to prepare for the LSAT and still take it for this cycle if you want to.
Excellent. And that actually is really good news for me to hear. The friend, well-meaning as I'm sure they were, advised me for, I believe the date was September as the no later than date, or October, something akin to that. And if indeed it is that I can wait without incurring any sort of disadvantage until September, or excuse me, until December, then that would be a load off my mind, and I can completely focus on studying for the LSAT, because currently I will achieve the necessary requisites for my bachelor's degree in April. And if I can achieve it in April, I can complete the plan by October and be perfectly fine. So Thank you for highlighting that. That wasn't something that was clear to me.
Yeah, of course. So there's a lot of confusion around this, and also things have changed in recent years. Applying early matters much less than it used to. And of course, having a 175 and applying in September is a little bit better than having that 175 in December or January. But applying, if it takes you a few more months to get even a couple more points, it's well worth waiting.
Excellent. I will take that advice then, and I will, for now, focus exclusively on my college studies. And once I wrap that up at the end of April, then I will go ahead and give my all to the plan. And I will be sure to send you any questions about it, because there was one, in the plan, you referenced a logic game that I believe you said that you created on your web page. When I went through and was looking at my errors, I couldn't understand one. I'm like, what the heck? And I looked through the comments, and a lot of other people seem to indicate that trouble. I'm not sure if the particular one comes to mind that you that you created, or.
Well, there have actually been a couple like that where people are, my tricks were quite deceiving. But if you continue reviewing the comments, you will see people respond and clarify the confusion around it. But yeah, there's some tough ones I wrote there.
Yeah, they were, but I enjoy them. Logic games are particularly fun. Reading comprehension, I'm not so much looking forward to.
Yeah. Well, take it one piece at a time, but you've got plenty of time right now as we speak.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate your help so much in this, and for somebody who's been following your resource for a number of years, back when you had the old website. I certainly appreciate it, because for me personally, as some context, I was in a position where I just simply couldn't study. I was at that time in the military, still abroad, and it was a long-term goal of mine. And reading through your materials, which I didn't know you had a YouTube channel at the time, certainly helped me prepare, not just when I was in a position to study, but also to prepare my mindset for when I do study, to be able to think about the things that I needed to do to prepare. So I definitely appreciate your help in that.
My pleasure, James. Glad I was able to help. Before we sign off, what would you say is the biggest insight you got from our call today?
The biggest insight that the most practical one was that the window is a lot larger than I thought for law school applications, and a little bit as well as to how they go through those applications. In terms of strategy, it gave me the best insight to be able to more focus my studies in the plan and the method of reasoning that I established for taking the plan. For example, choosing the 6-month study plan more often than not is probably the better choice if one is able to, as opposed to a 3-month study plan, and being able to gauge your progress along the way to determine if you need more time or not. That was particularly helpful in a strategic sense.
Great. Well, I'm really glad I was able to help. Please keep in touch and let me know if you need anything at all as you move forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.